All right, let's dive in. Today, we're tackling a real game changer of a book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. And the core idea? It's deceptively simple, but honestly, it's revolutionary. It's all about how these tiny 1% changes can lead to absolutely remarkable results.
So let's just get right to it with a question I know you've asked yourself, because I've asked myself a million times. Why is lasting change so hard? You know, we all make these promises to ourselves. I'm going to hit the gym. I'm going to eat healthier. But man, it just feels like this constant uphill battle, right?
Well, James Clear drops this bombshell of a quote. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Think about that for a second. He's saying the problem isn't you. It's not that your goals aren't big enough. It's your system. I mean, winners and losers, they often have the exact same goals. The real difference maker is the system of tiny daily habits they've built. So the big takeaway right from the get-go, forget the finish line for a minute. Focus on building a better system.
And that leads us perfectly into our first big idea we need to dismantle, this whole myth of big goals. We're all taught that to get huge results, you need to take massive, life-altering action. But Atomic Habits? It basically says, nope, that's not how it works at all.
The real secret, he says, is what he calls an atomic habit. And the name is just perfect, right? Atomic has this cool double meaning. On one hand, it means it's super, super tiny, like an atom. But on the other hand, it's also the source of this immense, incredible power. It's the single, irreducible building block of a much bigger system, which is basically your life.
And this is where it gets crazy. Let's look at the math. If you get just 1% better each day for a whole year, you don't end up 365% better. No, you end up nearly 38 times better. That is the insane power of compounding. You know, on any given day, a 1% improvement is, well, it's basically invisible. You won't notice it. But stack those days up over months and years, the results are absolutely staggering.
Okay, so this 1% rule sounds cool in theory, but does it actually work? Well, there's probably no better real-world proof than the unbelievable story of the British cycling team.
You have to understand, for nearly 100 years, professional cycling in Great Britain was a total joke, a punchline. We're talking one single Olympic gold medal since 1908. And in 110 years, they had never won the Tour de France. They were so bad, one of the top bike manufacturers at the time literally refused to sell them bikes because they didn't want their brand associated with them. Ouch.
But then, in 2003, everything changed. They hired a guy named Dave Brailsford, and his whole philosophy was something he called the aggregation of marginal gains. It sounds fancy, but the idea was simple. Find every single tiny thing you can and improve it by just 1%. And when I say everything, I mean everything. They tested different massage gels. They hired a surgeon to teach the riders the proper way to wash their hands. They even painted the inside of the team truck white just to spot tiny bits of dust that could affect the bikes. No detail was too small.
So, did all this obsessive focus on tiny details work? Oh, you better believe it. Get this. In the 10 years between 2007 and 2017, British cyclists won an absolutely mind-boggling 178 world championships and 5 Tour de France titles. Those tiny 1% improvements had compounded into complete and utter dominance of the sport.
Okay, that's an incredible story. So we've seen the why. The power of the 1% rule is undeniable. But now for the big question. How do we actually do this in our own lives? Well, this is where James Clear gives us a super practical, easy-to-follow framework. He calls it the 4 laws of behavior change.
It's a simple 4-step process. 1, make it obvious. 2, make it attractive. 3, make it easy. And 4, make it satisfying. This simple framework is your roadmap for building any good habit or breaking any bad one. So let's dive into each one.
All right, law number 1, make it obvious. This one is all about the cues in your environment. You see, we're way more influenced by our surroundings than we think. Like, if you want to eat more fruit, what's the worst thing you can do? Hide the apples away in the crisper drawer in your fridge? No. You put a big, beautiful bowl of them right there on the kitchen counter where you can't miss them. The idea is to make the cues for your good habits just obvious, impossible to ignore.
Okay, law 2 is make it attractive. Our brains are basically dopamine-seeking missiles, right? And modern life is full of things designed to be irresistible, but we can hijack this for our own good. The trick is to bundle a habit you want to do with a habit you need to do. So maybe you tell yourself, okay, I only get to listen to my favorite podcast while I'm on the treadmill. See, you're making the treadmill way more attractive.
Next up, Law 3. Make it easy. This is huge. We are all fundamentally wired to follow the path of least resistance. It's just human nature. The more friction, the more steps between you and doing something, the less likely you are to do it. So the goal here isn't to be lazy, but to make your good habits as frictionless as you possibly can.
There's this great story about a photography professor. He split his class into two groups. The quantity group, he told them, your grade is based on the number of photos you submit. The quality group, you just need to submit one single perfect photo. So, at the end of the term, guess which group produced all the best work? It was the quantity group, by a long shot. Why? Because they weren't sitting around theorizing about perfection. They were out there taking tons of pictures, making mistakes, and learning. The lesson is powerful. Repetition is easier than perfection.
And that brings us to the fourth and final law: make it satisfying. Here's the deal with our brains. What gets immediately rewarded gets repeated. Simple as that. And this is the fundamental problem with most good habits, right? The reward for going to the gym is somewhere in the future. But the reward for eating a donut? It's right now. And our brains are always going to choose right now if we let them.
So we have to create our own immediate rewards. And a brilliant example of this is the paperclip strategy. There was this young stockbroker who would start every morning with 2 jars on his desk. One was full of 120 paperclips, and the other was empty. Every single time he made a sales call, he would move 1 paperclip over. That simple physical act gave him a tiny immediate hit of satisfaction. It was a visual scoreboard that made his progress feel real and satisfying in the moment.
Okay, so those are the 4 laws. That's the how-to manual for building habits. But there's another layer to this, a really powerful mindset shift that can supercharge everything. And it all comes down to changing just a couple of words in your head.
It's wild how much power a single word can have. Think about how often you say, I have to do this. I have to go for a run. What if you just switch that to, I get to go for a run? It completely reframes it, doesn't it? It's no longer a burden, it's an opportunity. I mean, both are true. You have to cook dinner, but you also get to provide a meal for your family. That simple little language trick makes any habit feel way more attractive.
And this idea of reframing leads us to what might be the single most powerful concept in the entire book. This is where we go from just changing our habits to changing our lives. Because true, lasting change isn't about what you want to achieve, it's about who you want to become.
See, most of us approach change from the outside in. We focus on outcomes. I want to lose 20 pounds. That's an outcome. But the most powerful way to change is from the inside out. Focus on your identity. So the goal isn't just to read a book, it's to become a reader. The goal isn't to run a marathon, it's to become a runner. You're shifting the focus from the what to the who. It sounds subtle, but the implications are absolutely massive.
There's this amazing little anecdote in the book about a guy who'd been a chronic nail biter his whole life. He tried everything to stop. Then his wife convinced him to get his first ever professional manicure. And it worked. He never chewed his nails again. Why? Because for the first time he saw his nails looking good. He suddenly felt a sense of pride in them. His identity shifted to, I'm someone who has nice nails, and you just don't chew things you're proud of. The bad habit just vanished, almost without effort, because his identity changed first.
So, as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with this one powerful analogy. It's about a stonecutter who hammers away at a rock, maybe 100 times, and nothing happens. No crack, nothing. But then, on the 101st blow, the rock splits in 2. And the stonecutter knows it wasn't that last hit that did it. It was all the hits that came before it. That right there is the power of atomic habits.
Every single one of those tiny efforts, every 1% improvement you make, it all matters. It's all adding up. It's all leading to that breakthrough moment. So, I'll leave you with this one question. What is the one tiny 1% change you're going to make today to start becoming the person you want to be?